United States, you might think that nobody thinks much about that. You might think that in hard-boiled New York, people don't miss continuity or a sense of history. But you'd be wrong.
She's like the icon in the community. Like here in America, you don't really see as much females with her statue. So I think she has a great influence.
I like that she's a remnant of the past, so I like that. You don't see too many of the monarchs still around, so I don't mind the queen.
We love the queen. That's queen. Fantastic. I didn't know that. Yeah, I've been here. High five. I know that's really cool. She's coming here, though.
She's here to make a speech at the United Nations, the organisation set up to promote world peace. It's a speech she's worked hard on. The four largest current providers of peacekeeping troops in the world are Commonwealth countries. She's head of state of 16 United Nations members, so this matters to her. The Queen makes speeches all the time, but she's not one of those people who like the sound of their own voice. She is pleased when the speeches are over. Public speaking is a routine, familiar, well-oiled ordeal. In less than 2 hours' time, the Queen is going to be standing there addressing the United Nations. First time she's done it since 1957.
This assembly was born of the endeavors of countless men and women.
Back then, she was upbeat and optimistic, and so she will be today. You might say mostly her story has been the triumph of optimism and hope over bitter experience. But after all, that is the story of monarchy, and it's the story of the United Nations too.
It has perhaps always been the case that the waging of peace is the hardest form of leadership of all.
That was a really important speech, and she was able to go there and talk a lot about foreign policy aspects, talk about the successes that the UN has had and the issues that are still troubling it, about failed states. So, you know, she can do an enormous amount.
Grown and prospered by responding.
The Queen doesn't do trade deals. The Queen isn't actually herself soliciting
must all work together as hard as ever if we are truly to be United Nations.
Rousing speeches aren't really her thing. In truth, the way the Queen connects best is with a personal touch. She may not be a natural performer. She's never provocative. But she has found the right words for times of grief and crisis. And she moves people just by turning up, as she's about to do here in the last part of her New York visit at the site of the Twin Towers. Ground zero, nearly a decade on, and it's messy and dirty and busy and hot, and still very sad. Part of the job of a monarch is to articulate what people feel when tragedy strikes, when things go wrong. 67 British people died here among the nearly 3,000 who perished. And in the days afterwards, the Queen spoke very well. She spoke through the British ambassador just along the road at a church as the rain streaked down. And she said these were dark and harrowing times, and she finished by saying something which is simple and true, which is that grief is the price we pay for love. Now, so long afterwards, she's back. She's going to be laying a wreath. Prince Charles and Camilla have been here before, but she's never been here. And it's going to be, it'll be a poignant moment, actually. Among those waiting for her is firefighter John Morabito, who survived the collapse of the South Tower. 411 emergency workers lost their lives as a result of the terrorist attacks.
Just to be able to meet the Queen and see her human side, that she would come down here and grace us with her presence at the World Trade Center site. I think it lifts the spirits of Americans, especially New Yorkers. There are times, especially in the fire department, we feel like the world kind of forgot about us and what we went through. So to have someone like the Queen of England, which is a sister country to us, we
watching the Queen operate abroad, even outside the Commonwealth, you do see her differently. People I've talked to here in New York were genuinely thrilled and moved that she'd come. In a way, I don't think they'd feel about a British Prime Minister or politician. It would be absurd, however, to say that the Queen helps to project British power. Power seems the very last thing that she's about. Or glory, or pomp, at least here. It's as if we have a Foreign Office, a Ministry of Defence, a Department of Trade, and she is our slightly mysterious Department of Friendliness. It is a rum business, but in a good way. It's November 2010 in Abu Dhabi, and the Queen is in the Gulf. Once the Windsors were king emperors. Now they travel as would-be wealth creators, promoters, first onto the beaches with the politicians and the businessmen at their backs. The colour of the carpet waiting for her never changes, but the world certainly does. When she became Queen, this place was in British hands, and it was mostly dust and camels and old forts. When she was last here, more than 30 years ago, this was an independent country on its way. And now it's one of the great mushrooming Jack and the Beanstalk economies, enormously powerful. Strikes me that this has become a place which matters an awful lot to, I mean, Manchester City fans, but also to a lot of workers as well. It's not just the UAE, it's the whole region. Yeah. Hugely important from the business opportunities, the business case. There's an awful lot going on. I've been coming to this region now for whatever it is, 12 years. Yes. And developing the relationships. And this part of the world needs continuous hand and touch. And personal contacts matter a lot. Oh, hugely. Hugely. And the fact that Her Majesty is coming now is really, really important, especially after the new government has
have to realise when you're abroad is that people absolutely adore the notion of the British monarchy. They're fascinated by it. They want to know about it. I mean, if I'm whatever part of the world I'm in, they will always ask me about the Queen, about what it's like, about the monarchy. And so for us as a country, it's a no-brainer actually in terms of what they bring, because they bring something no one else can.
The pinnacle, of course, is the Queen's visit, but it's what's going on beforehand, where the political context is, what's going on with the relationship, and then you've then got to look at what happens afterwards, and it's the gathering of those strands that you pull together, and then, as it were, the Queen is the person who sort of cinches them at that one particular moment. And so these are special, and they add shine, varnish, and to some extent paint to the canvas that is the relationship between us and another country.
The Queen's visit continues to the kingdom of Oman, ruled by an old friend of hers, Sultan Qaboos. At times it feels more like Narnia. Bagpipe playing, camel-mounted soldiers, glittering forts. But Oman counts, an oasis of relative peace in an increasingly angry region, often ignored by her people at home. The Queen has been helping keep Britain quietly plugged in around the world for 60 years. She seems to enjoy it. That is the job. But for a woman of her age, the politicians keep on pushing her hard. The experience of following the Queen, even for a short time, takes you to some strange places and involves a great deal of exotic transportation. It's sometimes like ordinary life, with the colour balance turned up so high, it's almost shrieking. But it's hot, hard work, and underneath the clatter and glitter, rather more hard-headed and down to earth than it looks. For 60 years, the Queen has been, many people would say, an adornment. What she isn't is an ornament. differently, running this monarchy in modern times, juggling old authority and noisy democracy, hasn't just happened. It's been carefully thought through by the Queen, her father, her grandfather, and their advisors. They had an idea, a plan, and by and large, they've stuck to it. In episode 2 of The Diamond Queen, we explore that plan further. We look at how the Queen has been a quiet but restless moderniser.
She did close a circle of history.
We ask how the family have learned from her.
She very much leaves the family to go off and find their own way. If you get it wrong, stand by. You'll be put back in your place.
And we hear the inside story of her grandson's wedding.
I rang my grandmother up for some clarification on the issue, and Julie got told that it was ridiculous. She was right, as she always is.
That have seen momentous changes at a bewildering speed. Queen Elizabeth II's 60-year reign has been comforting in its continuity.